Tesla was never just a car company. For years, it represented something much bigger. It was the future, the rebellion against old automakers, the company that made electric vehicles look exciting, intelligent, and elite. Buying a Tesla did not feel like buying a car. It felt like buying into a movement. And that is exactly why Tesla became one of the most powerful companies in the modern business world. But that is also why its fall feels so strange. Because Tesla did not collapse in the way most companies collapse. It did not suddenly disappear. It did not go bankrupt overnight. And it did not lose because electric vehicles failed. Tesla's real problem is more subtle than that. The company that once defined the future started losing control of the story. And when a brand is built on belief, losing control of the story can be far more dangerous than losing control of the product. In this episode, we are not just looking at Tesla as a car company. We are looking at Tesla as a symbol of modern power, how it rose, why it dominated, and why the same forces that made it unstoppable may now be turning against it. Because the fall of Tesla is not just about cars. It is about hype. It is about identity. It is about consumer psychology, and it is about what happens when a company becomes so powerful that it starts believing its own myth. To understand Tesla's weakness, we first need to understand what made it so strong. Tesla entered an industry that looked almost impossible to disrupt. The auto industry was old, capital-intensive, brutally competitive, and dominated by giants with decades of manufacturing experience. On paper, Tesla should have struggled to survive. Instead, it did something few companies ever do. It changed the meaning of the category. Before Tesla, electric cars were often seen as slow, unattractive, or impractical. Tesla changed that image. It made electric cars feel fast, luxurious, intelligent, and aspirational. That shift was not just technological, it was psychological. Tesla did not simply sell transportation. It sold status. It sold innovation. It sold a vision of the future. And most importantly, it made customers feel like they were ahead of everyone else. That is one of the most powerful things a brand can do. People do not just buy products, they buy what those products say about them. And Tesla understood that better than almost any automaker in history. A Tesla owner was not just driving a vehicle, they were signaling taste, progress, wealth, environmental awareness, and in many cases, loyalty to a larger idea. That is why Tesla could command attention far beyond the size of its product lineup. For years, it felt like Tesla was everywhere, in headlines, in financial markets, in culture, in online debate, in the imagination of consumers and investors. And while traditional automakers were still treated like industrial companies, Tesla was treated like a technology empire. That difference changed everything. Investors did not value Tesla like Ford or General Motors. They valued Tesla like a company that could dominate the future. That meant Tesla gained something incredibly valuable. Not just money, but narrative power. Narrative power allows a company to be judged by what people believe it will become, not just by what it is today. And for a long time, Tesla had massive amounts of it. This gave the company room to experiment, room to expand, room to recover from mistakes, and room to stay at the center of attention. It also helped Tesla turn product launches into events and setbacks into temporary noise. That kind of power is rare, but it creates a hidden danger. Because once a company is rewarded for being a symbol, it can slowly become dependent on being believed in. And when that happens, perception stops being a support system. It becomes the entire engine. Tesla's rise was not built on one thing. It was built on the combination of product, personality, and timing. The product felt different, the leadership felt bold, and the market was ready for a new story. Governments were pushing cleaner transportation. Consumers were becoming more open to EVs. Tech culture was dominating the public imagination, and investors were searching for the next giant winner. Tesla stood at the center of all of that. It looked like the perfect company for the moment. Its vehicles were visually recognizable. Its interface felt modern. Its software identity made the brand feel more like Apple than Detroit. And its public image carried the energy of disruption. In other words, Tesla was not just winning as a manufacturer, it was winning as an idea. And that is why so many competitors felt late, even before they fully arrived. Because Tesla had already won the first battle, the battle for attention. And in modern business, attention is often the first form of market power. But attention is not loyalty. Hype is not invincibility. And a company that dominates the conversation can still lose control of the market. Because once the world catches up, the rules begin to change. And the very thing that made Tesla powerful, its myth, its aura, its identity, can start becoming a burden. Tesla did not start weak. It started as one of the strongest stories in modern business. Which raises the real question. If Tesla had the brand, the hype, the technology image, and the market advantage, how did the EV king start losing its grip? Because the next part of this story is where Tesla's greatest strength begins turning into its greatest weakness. Tesla's greatest weakness did not begin with failure. It began with success. For years, Tesla had something most companies spend decades trying to build: pricing power. That means customers were willing to pay more because the brand felt different, not just because the car had wheels, batteries, and software, but because owning one felt like owning a piece of the future. This was Tesla's hidden advantage. It could sell fewer models than traditional automakers, but still command massive attention. It could delay products, miss targets, and face criticism, while the market still treated the company like a future empire. And for a long time, that belief protected Tesla. But eventually, the market changed. The electric vehicle world became crowded. Legacy automakers started taking EVs seriously. Chinese competitors became faster, cheaper, and more aggressive. Consumers had more choices. And suddenly, Tesla was no longer the only company selling the future. That is where the hidden mistake begins. Because when competition rises, a company has two choices. It can protect the brand and make the product feel more valuable, or it can protect sales volume by cutting prices. Tesla chose price. At first, this looked like a smart move. Lower prices made Tesla vehicles more accessible. They pressured competitors. They helped move inventory. And they reminded the market that Tesla could still play aggressively. But price cuts carry a psychological cost. Because the moment a premium brand starts lowering prices again and again, consumers begin to think differently. They stop asking, "How do I get one?" And they start asking, "Should I wait for a better deal?" That shift is dangerous, because it changes the customer's relationship with the product. A Tesla was once something people stretched to buy. Then it became something people compared, negotiated, delayed, and second-guessed. That is not just a pricing problem. That is a brand problem. The more Tesla cut prices, the more it trained buyers to wait. And the more buyers waited, the harder it became to maintain the aura of scarcity, status, and inevitability. This is one of the most important lessons in business. Price is not just a number. Price is a signal. When a product is expensive, people may see it as exclusive, powerful, and desirable. When that same product keeps getting cheaper, people may start wondering what changed. Was it overpriced before? Is demand weakening? Is the brand losing power? Is a newer model coming? Or is the company simply trying harder to sell? Those questions slowly weaken the story. And Tesla's story was one of its strongest assets. The company was not supposed to feel desperate. It was supposed to feel inevitable. But repeated discounting can make even a powerful brand look vulnerable. This does not mean lowering prices is always wrong. Sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes it is strategic. Sometimes it helps a company reach the mass market. But for Tesla, the risk was bigger because the brand had been built on more than affordability. It had been built on desire. And desire works differently from demand. Demand asks, "Do I need this?" Desire asks, "What does this say about me?" For years, Tesla lived in the second question. It was not just a rational purchase, it was emotional. It was symbolic, it was identity. But once Tesla entered a price war, the conversation changed. Suddenly, people were not just talking about innovation, they were talking about discounts. They were not just asking whether Tesla was the future, they were asking whether Tesla was still worth the price. And once that question enters the market, the brand has already lost some control. This is why competition from China became so dangerous. Companies like BYD did not need to beat Tesla at its own myth. They just needed to make EVs feel normal, affordable, and widely available. That is a different kind of threat. Not a threat to Tesla's technology image, a threat to Tesla's uniqueness. Because when electric cars become normal, Tesla can no longer win simply by being electric. It has to win on design, price, software, service, reliability, and trust. In other words, it has to compete like a car company. And that is the exact thing Tesla spent years trying to escape. Tesla wanted to be valued like a technology company. It wanted to be seen as a movement. It wanted to be treated like a category creator. But as the EV market matured, Tesla was pulled back into the rules of the auto industry. Margins mattered. Model age mattered. Competition mattered. Customer service mattered. Price mattered. And suddenly, the myth was not enough. This is the hidden trap of being first. When you create a market, you get to define the story. But when that market grows, everyone else gets to enter the story. And when everyone enters, the category becomes less magical. At that point, the pioneer has to prove it can keep leading. Not through hype, not through promises, not through personality, but through execution. Tesla still had advantages. It still had scale. It still had brand awareness. It still had charging infrastructure. It still had software credibility. And it still had a powerful place in the imagination of consumers. But the market was no longer giving it unlimited patience. That is the turning point. The company that once made electric vehicles feel like the future now had to convince people that its own future was still stronger than everyone else's, and that is much harder. Because once a brand loses pricing power, it does not just lose profit. It loses psychological control. It loses the ability to tell customers what the product is worth. The market starts telling the company instead. And that is when the EV king began to look less like an untouchable empire, and more like a company fighting to defend the throne. Tesla's problem was not just that competitors arrived. That happens to every successful company. The real problem was that the world Tesla created started moving without it. For years, Tesla looked like the future because the rest of the auto industry looked late. Legacy automakers looked slow. Gasoline cars looked old. Electric cars looked like a niche. And Tesla looked like the only company brave enough to make the future feel desirable. But eventually, the future became crowded. And when the future becomes crowded, being first is no longer enough. This is the moment every dominant company fears. The moment when the market stops asking who created the category and starts asking who offers the best deal today. That is where Tesla's advantage began to change. Because the EV market did not stay frozen in Tesla's favor. Charging improved. Battery technology improved. Manufacturing became more competitive. Governments supported electric adoption. Consumers became more familiar with EVs, and competitors learned the language Tesla once owned: sleek design, fast acceleration, large screens, software updates, minimal interiors, clean energy messaging. Suddenly, Tesla was not the only brand speaking the language of the future. It was just the loudest one. And loud is not the same as unbeatable. This is one of the most dangerous shifts in business. When your advantage becomes familiar, the market stops treating it as magic. What once felt revolutionary becomes expected. What once felt premium becomes normal. What once made customers feel early now makes them compare. That is what happened to Tesla. The company that made electric cars desirable also helped make electric cars ordinary. And that is both the victory and the curse of every category creator. If you win too well, the world catches up. Then the question changes. It is no longer, should I buy an electric car? It becomes, which electric car gives me the most value? That question is much harder for Tesla, because value is not the same as belief. Belief allows a company to charge more. Value forces a company to prove more, and the moment Tesla had to prove more, the market became less forgiving. In China, the pressure became especially intense. Chinese EV makers moved quickly. They launched models faster. They competed aggressively on price. They understood local consumers deeply. and they made electric cars feel less like a luxury symbol and more like a normal part of modern life. That is a serious threat to Tesla. Not because Tesla suddenly became irrelevant, but because Tesla was no longer the only exciting option. A brand can survive being expensive. A brand can survive being criticized. A brand can even survive being copied. But it struggles when customers stop feeling like it is the obvious choice. That is where the market turned. Tesla was no longer fighting only for attention. It was fighting against comparison. And comparison is brutal. Because comparison removes the aura. It turns a symbol into a spreadsheet. Range, price, features, interior quality, service, availability, charging, software, resale value. Suddenly, the emotional purchase becomes a rational debate. And when that happens, every weakness becomes louder. An aging model lineup becomes louder. Price cuts become louder. Customer complaints become louder. Delays become louder. Competition becomes louder. And the brand story becomes harder to control. This is the difference between being loved and being evaluated. When a company is loved, people forgive. When a company is evaluated, people calculate. Tesla spent years being loved by the market. Investors loved the future story. Customers loved the status. Fans loved the mission. The media loved the drama. But as the EV market matured, Tesla entered a harsher phase. It was no longer enough to be exciting. It had to be better. Not theoretically better. Not someday better. Better now. And that is where the pressure became visible. Because when a company is priced like a technology empire, but judged like an automaker, the gap becomes dangerous. Investors still wanted growth. Customers wanted better prices. Competitors wanted market share. And the company had to defend its margins while protecting demand. That is a difficult position. Cut prices too much, and the brand weakens. Keep prices too high, and competitors gain ground. Promise the future too often, and people start asking when the future actually arrives. That is the trap. Tesla was built on anticipation. But anticipation has a shelf life. At some point, the market stops rewarding what might happen and starts measuring what is happening. This is why delivery numbers mattered. This is why margins mattered. This is why the price war mattered. Because these were not just financial signals, they were psychological signals. They told the market that Tesla was no longer floating above the auto industry. It was being pulled back into it. And once that happens, the story changes. Tesla was not just competing with Ford, GM, Volkswagen, Hyundai, or BYD. It was competing with its own myth. The myth said Tesla was years ahead. The market asked why the models felt familiar. The myth said Tesla had unmatched demand. The market saw discounts and incentives. The myth said Tesla was a technology company. The market saw an automaker defending margins. The myth said Tesla was inevitable. The market started asking if inevitable was just another word for overconfidence. That is the moment a brand enters dangerous territory. Not because everyone turns against it, but because people start questioning the story that once made it powerful. And when that happens, even good news can feel weaker. A strong delivery quarter becomes not enough. A new feature becomes too late. A price cut becomes desperation. A product update becomes catching up. The same actions that once looked bold can begin to look defensive. That is how perception changes. Slowly, quietly, then all at once. And this matters beyond Tesla. Because every powerful company eventually faces this test. Can it stay special after the world understands its trick? Can it keep pricing power after competitors copy the category? Can it keep loyalty when customers have alternatives? Can it keep belief when the numbers get harder? For Tesla, this test became unavoidable. The EV market was no longer a blue ocean. It was becoming a battlefield. And battlefields are different from movements. Movements reward belief. Battlefields reward execution. That is where Tesla's identity became complicated. Was it still a technology movement? Was it still the future of transportation? Was it an AI company? Was it a robotics company? Was it an energy company? Or was it, beneath all the mythology, Still a car company facing car company problems? That question is dangerous. Because once the market asks what you really are, it may stop valuing you as what you promised to become. Tesla's greatest advantage was always that people saw more than a car company. But as competition grew, the world began forcing Tesla to answer a simpler question. What are you worth if we stop believing the myth? That is the pressure behind the fall. Not collapse, not failure, not the end, but a change in power. The market that once amplified Tesla's story started testing it. The customers that once chased the brand started comparing it. The investors that once rewarded the dream started watching the numbers, and the competitors that once looked late started learning fast. That is how a market turns, not by destroying the leader overnight, but by making the leader play by rules it used to escape. And by the time Tesla realized the game had changed, the next question became even harder. If the market no longer gives you automatic belief, how do you win it back? That is where the final lesson begins. Tesla's problem was not just that competitors arrived. That happens to every successful company. The real problem was that the world Tesla created started moving without it. For years, Tesla looked like the future, because the rest of the auto industry looked late. The fall of Tesla is not really about electric cars. It is about something much bigger. It is about what happens when a company becomes so powerful that the market stops judging it only by what it sells, and starts judging it by what it represents. For years, Tesla represented the future. Not a possible future, the future. That was its power. Tesla did not just convince people that electric cars could work. It convinced people that electric cars could be desirable. It made sustainability feel fast. It made software feel luxurious. It made technology feel personal. It made a car feel like a statement. And that is extremely difficult to build. Most companies spend decades trying to become meaningful. Tesla became meaningful so fast that the meaning itself became part of the product. But that is where the danger begins. Because when a company sells meaning, it has to protect meaning. When a company sells status, it has to protect status. When a company sells belief, it has to protect belief. And belief is powerful, but fragile. It can create empires. It can lift valuations. It can attract customers. It can make people defend a brand as if they are defending themselves. But belief has one weakness. It cannot survive forever without reinforcement. At some point, the product has to keep proving the story. The experience has to keep proving the story. The execution has to keep proving the story. The numbers have to keep proving the story. And if they do not, the market starts to separate the myth from the reality. That is what makes Tesla's story so important. Tesla did not become weaker because people suddenly stopped caring about electric vehicles. It became vulnerable because the category matured. The world caught up. Customers had options. Competitors learned the language. Prices became negotiable. And the thing that once made Tesla feel untouchable started becoming normal. That is the curse of winning. If you change the market, you also train the market. You train customers to expect more. You train competitors to copy faster. You train investors to demand bigger results. You train the world to stop being amazed by the thing you made possible. This is why market power never stays still. The moment a company becomes dominant, the pressure begins. Pressure from competitors. Pressure from customers. Pressure from investors. Pressure from its own reputation. And eventually, the company has to answer a brutal question. Can it still be exceptional after everyone understands what made it exceptional? That is the real test. Not the launch, not the hype, not the first wave of believers. The real test is what happens after the world catches up. Tesla's early advantage came from being different, but mature markets punish companies that rely only on being different. Because difference fades, novelty fades, hype fades. What remains is execution, product quality, trust, service, pricing discipline, innovation that customers can actually feel, and the ability to make people believe again. This is where many powerful companies lose control. They confuse attention with loyalty. They confuse valuation with strength. They confuse popularity with protection. They confuse being talked about with being trusted. But attention is not a moat. Attention can disappear. Attention can turn negative. Attention can move to the next exciting thing. A true moat is harder. It is built through consistency, through trust, through products that keep delivering, through customers who return even when competitors offer alternatives, through a brand that does not need constant drama to stay relevant. Tesla had attention. Massive attention. But the question now is whether it can turn that attention back into durable trust. Because the market no longer treats Tesla like a mystery. It treats Tesla like a company that must defend its price, its promise, and its future. That does not mean Tesla is finished. That is too easy. And easy conclusions are usually wrong. Tesla still has scale. It still has brand recognition. It still has charging infrastructure. It still has loyal customers. It still has technological ambition. It still has the ability to surprise the market. But the story has changed. And when the story changes, power changes with it. The old Tesla was judged by imagination. The new Tesla is judged by evidence. The old Tesla was rewarded for what it could become. The new Tesla is questioned for what it has not yet delivered. The old Tesla made people feel early. The new Tesla must convince people it is still ahead. That is a very different kind of battle. And this is the lesson every entrepreneur, investor, and creator should understand. A brand is not what you say you are. A brand is what people continue to believe when the excitement fades. That is the line between hype and power. Hype makes people look. Power makes people stay. Hype creates attention. Power creates trust. Hype can lift a company. But trust is what keeps it standing. And once trust starts to weaken, everything becomes harder. Marketing becomes harder. Pricing becomes harder. Retention becomes harder. Investor confidence becomes harder. Even innovation becomes harder, because the market stops giving you unlimited patience. That is why the strongest companies do not only chase attention, they protect meaning. They protect the emotional reason people choose them. They protect the feeling that their product still matters. Because once customers stop feeling something, they start calculating everything. And once they start calculating everything, the brand has already lost part of its magic. That is what Tesla is fighting now. Not just competitors, not just price pressure, not just changing demand. Tesla is fighting the slow erosion of its own aura, the feeling that it was inevitable, the feeling that it was always ahead, the feeling that buying one meant joining the future. That feeling was priceless, and no spreadsheet can easily bring it back. This is why powerful companies do not collapse only when their numbers break. Sometimes they start falling when the emotion changes, when customers hesitate, when investors question, when competitors no longer fear them, when the story that once protected the company becomes the story the company must now defend. That is the quiet danger of modern power. The market does not always destroy giants. Sometimes it simply stops believing them as much as before. And for a company built on belief, that can be enough to change everything. So what happens next? Tesla can still recover narrative power, but it will not happen through hype alone. It will not happen through promises alone. It will not happen just because the brand was once powerful. It has to earn the story again, through products, through execution, through trust, through discipline, through proof. Because the next era of Tesla will not be won by being the loudest company in the room. It will be won by becoming undeniable again. And that is the real Vexonomy lesson. Money follows belief, but belief follows proof. The bigger the belief, the bigger the empire. But the moment the proof weakens, the empire starts shaking. Tesla's rise showed the power of narrative. Its pressure today shows the cost of depending on it. And whether Tesla rises again or keeps losing control, one thing is clear. The companies that dominate the future are not the ones that only capture attention. They are the ones that keep earning belief after attention fades. That is where real power lives. And that is why Tesla's story matters. Because in modern business, the most dangerous collapse is not always bankruptcy. It is the moment the world stops seeing you as inevitable and starts seeing you as optional. If you want more stories about how powerful companies lose control, how markets expose weakness, and how money, status, and belief shape the modern world. This is Vexonomy, the psychology of wealth and power, and the next giant is already showing cracks.